Have you ever wondered what exactly makes another person feel a deep sense of love for you? Not just a fleeting infatuation or a superficial attraction, but that all-consuming, quiet and powerful connection where it feels like something inside you resonates with the inner world of another person, as if in your eyes they see a reflection of themselves. Carl Jung, an outstanding researcher of the depths of the human unconscious, urges us to seek answers not on the surface, but in those aspects of our personality that we ourselves have not yet fully realized. After all, true love begins not with another person, but with a reflection of ourselves. When someone falls in love with you, they choose something more than just appearance or the ability to speak beautifully. They respond to the invisible vibrations emanating from the depths of your soul, to your personal history, your past wounds, your innermost dreams, to the play of light and shadow within you. According to Jung, this person sees not only you, but also what you awaken in their own unconscious. And this power is much stronger than any physical attraction or brilliant conversation. This is a mystery that you want to unravel to the end. The human unconscious is striving for wholeness and completeness, is a powerful driver of interpersonal relationships. In the depths of each person's psyche lie elements that they themselves are not aware of, capable of playing the role of a missing link in the life of another. Sometimes, someone's silence becomes a healing balm, pacifying inner chaos, and another's pain, like a mirror, reflects the need to heal one's own wounds. It is possible that someone's unwavering resilience awakens a dormant instinct for protection. This is how, invisibly and unconsciously, an inexplicable but tangible connection arises between people. Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and philosopher, spoke of the archetypes of the anima and animus, internal energies inherent in every person and projected onto others. It is likely that the reason for sudden love is that one person unwittingly embodies the lost anima of another, their idealized inner image. Hence the irresistible desire, the nature of which remains a mystery to the lover himself. However, such attraction is not always a manifestation of that romantic love, glorified in works of art. This phenomenon is much more complex. It is a meeting of unconscious elements of the psyche, needs yearning for satisfaction, traumas seeking redemption. It is possible that someone falls in love because another person, without realizing it, embodies what the first has suppressed throughout their life. The freedom-loving nature of one can awaken in another the desire to break free from shackles, and sensitivity and receptivity can awaken tenderness that they have denied for many years. It often happens that in the depths of the human soul there is darkness comparable to that seen in another person. This meeting of two shadows can become a moment of awakening of a feeling that we usually call love. That is why it is often difficult to understand why some people strive for us with such persistence, and then after a while their love is replaced by alienation or even hostility. Carl Jung, a famous Swiss psychoanalyst, warned that strong projections onto another person will sooner or later require integration. In other words, what someone sees in you is not your true essence, but only a symbol of what that person is looking for in themselves. When the veil of projection falls, the moment of truth arrives. Two people appear before each other, not as reflections, but as real personalities. This stage may be less romantic, but it is much deeper, because if the connection stands the test of time, it is based not on unconscious attraction, but on conscious choice. There are people who fall in love with you because of who you represent in their psyche, because of the energy you radiate, because of how your presence touches the old, sometimes dormant, and sometimes painful, strings of the soul. There is no logic in this. It is not a matter of merit or strategy. Love, from Jung's point of view, is not a reward or a punishment, but rather a reflection. When someone falls in love with you, they recognize in your presence what they need to integrate within themselves, even if they themselves do not realize it, even if they never admit it aloud. There are people whose gaze upon meeting seems to speak of a long and tender hope, and this is no accident. It's not so much about the personality itself, but about the inner strength that it awakens in another person. Perhaps without suspecting it, it touches a deeply hidden emotional wound or rekindles a flame that had gone out. And although such a meeting is not a guarantee of a cloudless future, it testifies to the extraordinary depth of the moment being experienced. The famous psychoanalyst Carl Jung argued that chance encounters are a myth. Every person who comes into our lives plays a specific psychological, symbolic, and archetypal role. When someone experiences a strong attraction, they see not just an appearance but something more, a missing piece that seems to complete their personal story. However, such infatuation can be dangerous. If a person becomes fixated on the image they project onto another, disappointment is inevitable. It's not that the object of their affections has changed, but that they never matched the created ideal. This is when the real test begins, to see each other without illusions, with an open heart and a clear gaze. True love transcends superficial adoration, representing a deep and conscious recognition of the other person's value. It's not a desire to find a missing part in someone, but rather a desire to share a journey of personal growth and self-discovery. The reasons for this feeling often escape rational explanation. It's not so much about a person's actions or appearance, but what they awaken in the soul of another. It's like opening hidden doors, an echo that their voice leaves in the depths of the heart. That's why love has a transformative power, even if it's fleeting. It's not just a meeting with another person, but a meeting with oneself, with a part of one's personality that had not been seen before. Sometimes a person falls in love not because the other person meets their ideals, but because forgotten feelings and experiences awaken in their presence. The spark is ignited not by physical attraction, but by an inexplicable feeling of home, a feeling based not on words and promises, but on an ancient, deep connection, as if the souls of these people have met before. Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychoanalyst, would explain the phenomenon of sudden infatuation through the lens of the collective unconscious, that deep psychic network that mysteriously connects people, transcending the boundaries of time, space, and rational thinking. After all, there are ties whose roots go back into the past, not arising in the present, and manifest only under certain circumstances. When a person experiences the feeling of being in love, they often do not realize the true reasons for their attraction. It seems to them that they were conquered by the smile of their chosen one or their manner of moving, but the real reason lies much deeper, in the realm of projections. Perhaps deep down they saw strength hidden behind external vulnerability, or freedom glimpsed through sadness. Maybe they found peace in silence or chaos in the joy of another person. The truth is that they discovered something they needed to find, and although the chosen one is not responsible for this projection, their essence somehow responded to this need. Love, according to Jung, often arises from an unconscious desire for wholeness. We fall in love because we intuitively feel, even if we don't realize it, that another person can show us the way to what we have lost. Some people are attracted not to the personality as such, but to what it symbolizes in their psyche. Perhaps a person carries the energy of a long-forgotten image, an absent father, a wounded mother, or an unfulfilled love, and this manifests involuntarily. The most amazing and painful thing is that we ourselves can project our inner images onto others, because every person is both an object and a subject of projections. Often people are united not so much by common interests and views, but by unresolved problems from the past. It is this unconscious exchange of experiences that creates a feeling of strong connection. A person can burst into feelings, seeing in another the opportunity to heal their emotional wounds. They don't realize this rationally, but their subconscious instinctively feels this need for healing. Then they begin to seek meetings, follow this person, listen carefully to their every word, as if they hold the key to the long-locked doors of their soul. However, as we know, no one can heal another. This bitter truth becomes obvious when illusions dissipate. Carl Jung once remarked that everything that irritates us about another person can become a valuable lesson in self-knowledge. A similar situation occurs with admiration. Often what we value most in someone is a quality that we do not recognize in ourselves, but intuitively feel its presence. That is why we are so drawn to this person, because we subconsciously strive to remember who we really are through reflection in another. Infatuation does not always arise from real similarity. Often, it is due to the fact that another person touches our most vulnerable places. Perhaps you are a ray of light for someone who is mired in darkness, or, conversely, a shadow for someone who is used to seeing only superficial light. Sometimes, a person falls in love because you embody something they've suppressed, something they fear, something they secretly dream of. And you, without even realizing it, become a dangerous mirror, reflecting their own deep-seated experiences, not malicious intentions. True love is far from fairy tale notions. It's more like a powerful emotional cataclysm capable of disrupting the usual order and shaking established life principles. Falling in love is often a manifestation of unconscious courage, but that's not all. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung spoke of so-called psychological destiny, asserting that certain encounters in our lives are not accidental, but push us toward profound inner changes. A person may love another not because of their perfection, but because their soul needs to go through a specific lesson involving pain, freedom from attachments, patience, and self-sacrifice. In this case, the beloved acts as a catalyst, initiating the process of transformation. Perhaps such love won't be long-lasting, but the changes it brings about in the other person's soul will remain forever. It often happens that people fall in love with a certain image that another person represents on their emotional map. Their way of loving awakens dormant feelings and leads into unexplored depths of the inner world. Then begins a complex dance between the known and the unknown, between attraction and fear, because deep love, paradoxically, can evoke strong apprehensions. In the depths of the human soul lie two eternal fears: the fear of getting lost in the labyrinths of life, and the terror of finding one's true self. And then a person appears who, without intentionally striving to do so, becomes that very bridge spanning the abyss to the cherished but painful emotional refuge that the other has avoided for many years. Perhaps it is this fear that drives some people to run away at the very moment when feelings begin to take real shape. After all, what they are experiencing is not just a fleeting infatuation, but something ancient, dense, sacred. This person touches not only their heart but their entire history, awakening memories that seemed long forgotten. They evoke a need for truth, however uncomfortable it may be, and not everyone is ready for that. True love is both a mirror reflecting our shortcomings and an abyss full of unexplored depths, and a healing from old wounds and a challenge thrown to oneself. It's important to understand that when falling in love, a person doesn't always love the very essence of another. Sometimes they love only their projection, seeking in another answers that they must find within themselves. This doesn't diminish the value of the connection, but makes it more human, because love is not an ideal but a constant search, an invitation to self-discovery. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung asserted that every deep relationship is an opportunity for individuation, inner growth. When a person falls in love, a whole chain of changes is triggered in the universe of their psyche, affecting both partners. It is in the nuances that escape the eye that magic lies. In those moments when glances meet and the course of time seems to freeze. In the silence where two kindred minds recognize each other, perhaps not in their present form but in their past or potential. And this is enough for the heart to open up without any invitation. It often happens that a person experiences attraction because someone embodies what they have always sought, although they were not fully aware of it. It's not about external perfection or a list of imaginary qualities, but about an emotional response bordering on mysticism. It's as if in the presence of this person something resonates inside, as if their essence exclaims, "Finally." And this is despite the fact that the mind is still trying to make sense of what is happening. Carl Jung spoke of synchronicity as those fateful encounters that seem predestined. There is no rational explanation for this, but there is a certain inner conviction that prompts one to stay close. Sometimes love arises as a kind of coincidence that cannot be written off as chance. However, there is also a more subtle truth. It happens that attraction arises because in another person one sees the embodiment of an unhealed emotional wound. This is not a manifestation of cruelty, but a deeply human trait. In a partner, a person subconsciously strives to relive a past experience, hoping to correct the course of their personal history. Perhaps in another they see echoes of a past feeling of abandonment or longing for the unconditional love that they once lacked. Without realizing it, they cling to another as a chance for healing. Carl Jung would call this the activation of complexes, deeply rooted emotional structures that influence feelings, choices, and the expression of love. At this level, love ceases to be a simple attraction, turning into a memory, an echo, a reflection. When falling in love, a person often reacts not to the actual behavior of another, but to what is awakened in the depths of their own soul. A feeling of familiarity arises even with a superficial acquaintance, an inexplicable nostalgia. This is not a coincidence. The soul recognizes what it needs to remember. Sometimes, falling in love arises from a sense of completeness that a person experiences with another. It's not about filling a void, but about activating the possibility of reuniting with a lost part of oneself. Love is an alchemical process that Jung spoke about with particular clarity. Every significant relationship carries the potential for mutual transformation. Sometimes it happens that a person experiences an attraction that is difficult to explain rationally. Subconsciously sensing that a meeting with a certain person can change their life, they find in them a challenge, a stimulus for personal growth, even if it is associated with some discomfort. Initially, this may manifest as charm or passionate desire, but deep down there is something more, a call to transformation, a readiness for which not everyone has. That is why many prefer to love from afar, in a world of dreams and fantasies, since true love implies a collision with oneself, with one's weaknesses and fears. It also happens that the reason for the emergence of a feeling is the discrepancy with generally accepted norms and patterns. Unpredictability of reactions, the ability to destroy protective barriers with tenderness, the absence of manipulation and demands. All this, in a world where relationships are often permeated with fear and control, seems like a real revolution. Meeting such a person can cause mixed feelings, admiration and fear at the same time. The impossibility of classifying, the absence of clear expectations and ready-made scenarios disarm. A person surrenders, allowing themselves to simply feel, and that is when love is born. Sometimes attraction arises from subtle nuances. It happens that the reason for falling in love becomes a look in which there is no condemnation, but there is understanding. When a person listens attentively, not waiting for their turn to speak, but sincerely present in the moment, it touches the most secret corners of the soul. In a society where everyone is eager to be seen, meeting someone who truly sees becomes a rare gift. Carl Jung argued that the soul strives for authenticity. Discovering a person who is not afraid to be themselves, appears without masks and tricks, a powerful attraction arises. This opens up the possibility of unconditional love. Perhaps a person does not realize it, but their simplicity can become a healing balm for others. Their taciturnity gives peace, and constancy instills a sense of security. Someone may fall in love with those qualities that seem insignificant, almost invisible. In a world full of noise, haste, and external tinsel, authenticity becomes an oasis, a refuge for the soul. It also happens that attraction arises from common emotional wounds. People may not realize this, not talk about it, but they are united by the pain they have experienced. In this quiet connection, an unexpected tenderness is born. The soul seems to say, "You survived too." No need to explain everything. Sometimes love begins as an alliance of two survivors, two people who have fallen but retained faith, two who do not promise perfection but guarantee presence. Falling in love becomes not a rational choice, but a surrender of the soul, an opportunity for another to enter life, not out of need, but of their own free will, because their presence inexplicably brings good. This is the secret. Jung argued that the deeper the awareness of one's own shadow, the more sincere love becomes. A person loves not because of lack, but because of awareness. They do not project their expectations, but share their inner world. In this honest exchange, another sees not a solution to problems, but a fellow traveler, and falls in love not with an imaginary image, but with a real person. There is a quiet truth that often goes unnoticed. Attraction arises not from what a person demonstrates, but from what they hide. Cracks in the soul, which they do not dare to show to the world, seep into gestures, pauses, and silence. There are people with subtle sensitivity who can catch unspoken pain, restrained tenderness, and fear of being hurt. Instead of pushing away, this brings them closer because they feel the truth in the fragility of another, a truth that they cannot find anywhere else. They fall in love not with the image, but with humanity. Jung spoke of the persona, a social mask that everyone uses to fit into society. However, he insisted that a real meeting occurs when a person removes this mask, when they appear as they are, with all their strengths and weaknesses. Interestingly, attraction arises precisely at the moment when a person feels most vulnerable, lost, and broken. At this moment, authenticity shines without filters, and the soul of another recognizes it. It's as if someone is saying, "I like you better this way, without armor. This way I can see you. This way I can love you." Sometimes people fall in love with the freedom they feel around someone, not because that person has it all figured out, but because, despite their doubts, they are honest with themselves. They don't pretend to be someone they're not to be liked. They don't sell an image. Their way of speaking, looking, and moving through the world radiates an inner freedom that inspires and attracts. Jung said that the soul is drawn to what it intuitively feels, can set it free. When someone sees that a person lives in harmony with themselves, even with their contradictions, they feel that they could be more authentic around them. This is the beginning of love, in the quiet desire to stop pretending. However, there is another facet to human relationships, the possibility of a deep connection arising when one feels a sense of peace in the presence of a particular person. This tranquility doesn't come from words, but rather from the aura they radiate. There are individuals whose energy has a healing effect. They don't necessarily have to know the answers to all questions, as their natural behavior is an answer in itself. Perhaps the person isn't even aware of it, but their silence brings others a sense of relief. When they simply listen attentively, the other person feels understood. Their sincere smile instills hope in the hearts of those around them. Infatuation arises because the world is full of stimuli, hustle and anxiety, and this person is an oasis of calm whose presence is impossible to forget. Some people fall in love because a certain person reminds them of lost values, a carefree childhood, naivety, and the ability to dream. Perhaps they don't do anything extraordinary, but their laughter, spontaneity, ability to admire the beauty of nature or interact with animals awakens a bright nostalgia in others. Being around them, they regain faith in what they thought was lost forever. In such situations, the feeling of love appears as a kind of return to lost hopes, where the person involuntarily becomes a link, restoring the other's connection with forgotten aspects of their own personality, which has a profound impact. Often, the emergence of love is not due to perfection, but to authenticity, when a person has the courage to admit their ignorance, openly demonstrates their fears without hiding them, and despite their falls, finds the strength to rise with dignity, which becomes a lesson, touches hearts, and evokes a feeling of love. In a world where the pursuit of perfection prevails, meeting a person who allows themselves to be imperfect is an act of courage that can inspire others. Carl Jung asserted that only by accepting one's shadow side can one attain the capacity for true love. Accepting oneself with all one's strengths and weaknesses, refusing to fight one's wounds, and integrating them into the personality allows one to become a mirror for others, a mirror that does not judge or compare, but only reflects the truth. There are people who are attracted to another person by the vision of the future, not idealized and filled with empty promises, but real and achievable. The gaze of those who pay attention to you catches a certain commonality, the possibility of sharing the burdens of life without ostentatious pomp or excessive effort. They see in you an island of serenity in the midst of the raging ocean of everyday life. And although it is difficult to explain this rationally, they feel in their gut that time seems to stand still with you. Conversations flow effortlessly, silence is not burdened with awkwardness, and there is no need to pretend to be anything. It is this deep feeling that gives rise to an irresistible desire to stay in their hearts. Sometimes you are fallen for because you inadvertently demonstrated an alternative path to love, based not on power and fear, but on freedom, sincerity, and the ability to listen to another. Perhaps you didn't set out to do this, but your style of communication with others left an indelible mark. Your ability to respect another person's personal space without violating its boundaries, to accompany without making demands, becomes a revelation for them, an experience that transforms the soul. After all, love that knows no suffocation, manipulation, or blackmail is, unfortunately, a rare phenomenon, and therefore, having encountered it, a person will not want to lose it. It also happens that people fall in love with you because, looking at you, they see a reflection of themselves. You awaken in them an awareness that, like a lightning strike, brings them out of a stupor, confronts them with reality, but not through condemnation, but through personal example. And in this mirror, albeit painful at times, they begin to recognize dormant parts of their personality. They fall in love because, next to you, they feel the opportunity to grow, break stereotypes, and finally start with a clean slate. It's unlikely anyone can truly know or hear the explanation of why and when someone feels attraction. Sometimes this feeling doesn't announce itself loudly or with striking displays. Often it arises unnoticed, in a fleeting glance, a minor gesture, a casually dropped word that, however, takes on great significance for another person. True love, which Carl Jung interpreted not merely as an emotion, but as a process of profound internal change, rarely announces itself noisily. It manifests quietly, delicately, but unmistakably. People fall in love because the presence of another person evokes a deep resonance in their soul, because that person inadvertently demonstrates a reflection of what they seek in themselves, because they awaken previously unknown emotions, and, above all, because next to them they once again feel human, without the need to wear masks, meet demands, or appear better than they actually are. Jung asserted that love is inextricably linked to transformation, and when a person changes for the better, simply by being around another, it indicates the genesis of love. Sometimes this feeling is perceived as a home, not in the sense of a physical place, but as an internal sense of belonging. Next to a loved one, the need to escape disappears, the opportunity to stay arises, to breathe freely, to make mistakes and receive forgiveness, to be oneself without fear. This is a rarity in the modern world, where relationships are often built on demands, expectations, and the need to constantly prove one's worth. But when love manifests in its pristine purity, it demands nothing in return. It simply exists, lives, and is revered. Love is a changeable feeling, not always remaining with us forever. Sometimes it happens that a person experiences deep affection, but cannot walk hand in hand with the object of their passion. The reason lies not in the absence of love, but in the unwillingness to accept the changes that this love brings. True love, even the strongest, poses a challenge, forces one to look deep within oneself, stimulates personal growth, and heals old wounds. However, not everyone is ready for such trials. Not everyone is capable of enduring the reflection in the mirror that love holds up. This is one of the mysteries of love, but it does not diminish its value and reality. Even brief and unrealized love leaves an indelible mark, bringing changes to a person's life. Perhaps these changes are not always noticeable, but a person who has known love will never be the same. True love leaves beautiful scars, not painful, but not forgotten either. As Carl Jung said, meeting another person is simultaneously meeting oneself. and each of us can become that mirror that reveals another person. It's worth pondering why someone fell in love with you in particular, not because of your appearance or achievements, not because of the stories you told, but because of the internal energy you radiate when you're not trying to impress. It could be your view of the world, your laughter, or even your silence. Sometimes people tend to believe that love arises as a result of their efforts and actions. However, as Jung insightfully noted, true love blossoms not in action, but in the very being of a person, in moments when they allow themselves to be authentic. Perhaps it is this unadulterated sincerity, this unedited essence, that captivates hearts. In a world ruled by masks, filters, and carefully calculated poses, meeting a person who openly demonstrates their true nature becomes an act of revolution and is incredibly attractive. Jung viewed love not as a fleeting feeling, but as an archetypal force, as an energy that permeates the human soul and transforms it from within. Infatuation is not a coincidence, but a manifestation of the invisible dance of the unconscious, when souls recognize each other, responding to a silent call, as if they were already acquainted in some other dimension. Therefore, if doubts ever arise about your own worth, inner beauty, and ability to be loved, it's important to remember the love that was felt for you was not a figment of the imagination, but a genuine feeling. Even if this love did not last, was not expressed in words, or turned out to be fleeting, it left its mark, touched the soul, and sowed seeds that will inevitably sprout and blossom over time. Love can knock on everyone's door, perhaps in the guise of a current acquaintance, or perhaps a completely new person, or even through deep self-discovery and self-acceptance. The most amazing thing about this process is that no supernatural effort is required to renew this feeling. There is no need to assume someone else's role, prove one's worth, or meet some contrived standards. The secret lies in staying true to oneself, with all one's weaknesses, past hardships, and unique view of the world. It is precisely this unique individuality, this inner essence, that attracts other people. Love arises not because of material possessions or outward attractiveness, but because of who a person is in moments of sincerity, when they forget about outside gazes and behave naturally. Now, having gone through this path of awareness, it is worth accepting the invitation to a simple but profound action, to cherish the love that is already present in life, and to await with an open heart the love that is yet to be experienced. Do not belittle this feeling, question it, or compare it to something else. It is important to open yourself to the possibility that someone may already be experiencing warm feelings, even if they do not express them in words or remain unnoticed. After all, sometimes love comes quietly, imperceptibly, but remains in the heart forever, becoming an inexhaustible source of joy and inspiration.